Economists in Zimbabwe have welcomed the measures announced by Finance and Economic Development Minister Mthuli Ncube on to stabilize the country's economy and the depreciating Zimbabwe dollar. Ncube said with effect from June 1, 2023, Treasury will now fund the Zimbabwe dollar component of the 25% foreign currency surrendered by exporters. He said this will eliminate the creation of additional money supply. The finance minister also announced that weekly auctions will be limited to a maximum of $5 million and winning bids at the auction will be paid within 24 hours. Economic analysts said the measures are progressive if followed to the letter and spirit. To discuss this, we're joined by Prosper Chitambara, an economist. Thank you for giving us your time. Quickly, what is your assessment of the effectiveness of the current measures in stabilizing the Zimbabwe dollar? Are there any other policies or interventions that you believe would be more effective in achieving this goal?
Thank you so much. No, I think the measures that have been announced are obviously welcome and a step in the right direction in terms of stabilization. But of course, there is more that we would need to do, especially around ensuring that we come up with a more sustainable financing mechanism for some of the projects that government has been embarking on. The infrastructure projects, was that has also been a major source of the creation of money that we have seen, and which has obviously contributed to instability in the country. And of course, institutional reforms around our parastatals, our state-owned enterprises, because government has been losing a lot of money again through the subsidization of loss-making parastatals. So I think there's scope to expedite the reform agenda, targeting key critical institutions like parastatals, and of course also even the central bank, ensuring that it's more strongly autonomous and independent. I think that will also help in terms of sustaining the reforms. So I would think the measures that have been announced should have some stabilization effect on the local currency. We're also seeing government obviously promoting the use of the local currency in terms of payments of custom duties. That should obviously enhance demand for the local currency, which should help in terms of having some stabilization effect on the local currency. So yes, I welcome the measures, but I believe there's more that we can do, especially around other institutional reforms that are critical in terms of engendering greater levels of confidence within the economy.
All right, what impact do you think these measures will have on inflation and the overall economic situation in Zimbabwe? Are there any potential trade-offs or unintended consequences that you anticipate?
Well, I think we will probably see some stabilization, especially in the short term. I'm not sure that will be sustained, but also probably going forward, if we could have a greater liberalization of the exchange rate so as to reduce the black market premium. So I think in the short term, we're probably going to see some stabilization, which should see a slowdown in terms of our inflation numbers. But of course, to sustain that, we then have to ensure that we fully remove distortions in terms of foreign exchange management and exchange rate determination, and also ensure that we sustain the financing of infrastructure, especially by roping in the private sector and also longer term financing instruments. Because what's been happening currently is that government has been bearing the greatest burden in terms of financing of infrastructure, which is actually not sustainable, and which has resulted in creation of money. So I'm hoping that we could actually correct that and allow for the issuance of maybe longer term instruments, whether they're debt. If it's debt, it also then exacerbates our debt situation. But in terms of degrees of freedom, I think they're a bit limited in terms of how we can sustainably finance some of the things that need to be financed, especially around infrastructure, given the fact that we have a huge infrastructure financing gap, estimated about 5 billion on an annual basis.
Right. How do you think the public and business community in Zimbabwe are responding to these measures? Are there any concerns or challenges that you think could arise as a result of the implementation of these measures?
Well, so far, some of the statements that I've read from the business community have been quite positive. They've been supportive of the measures. But I think what's also important is to ensure there's greater dialogue and cooperation between the government and the business sector, because that's been affected over the past few weeks, with government accusing the business sector of economic sabotage. So I think that we need to ensure that the business community and the government are singing from the same hymn sheet, because that's very critical. Government alone can't stabilize the situation. They require support from the business sector, which sector has also been affected, obviously, by the macroeconomic instability that's been prevailing in the economy over the past few months and even few years.
All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Prosper Chitambara, for speaking with us.
You're most welcome. Thank you.